In today's show, we're going to talk about 6 things that you can do right now to make better wildlife photos. Hey everyone, welcome into Magnolia Photography SC. I'm Jeff House, and I'm a wildlife photographer in Charleston, South Carolina. We're going to jump right into the information in today's show. We're going to talk about 6 things that you can do to make better photos when it comes to your wildlife photography. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're shooting birds or other animals. The first thing that you want to do to get better photos is visit the sites in your area regularly. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but if I go there all the time, I'm going to get the same photos. Well, that's not always true. I visit the same site every day, and yes, there are days where nothing interesting happens. I get the same old bird portraits that I can get any other day that I go to my locations, but it doesn't mean that every visit to your locations will be a waste. Use it as a time to practice. Some days nature just isn't cooperating, right? It doesn't always work on our schedule. They're not always doing things when we want them to do things. They may not be doing something interesting. Whatever the reason may be, it's just a lazy day and your photos are boring. But use this opportunity. Learn their behaviors. And that's why you want to go to the sites very frequently. You want to learn the behaviors of the birds or the animals you're photographing, because the more you understand their behaviors, the more likely you are to get better pictures, because you're going to understand when moments are about to happen. And this puts you in a more ready position for capturing something special. I learned this very early on in wildlife photography when I was photographing an osprey and it was taking a big poop on the perch that it was sitting on up in this tree. And so I looked away from the camera for a second, and the next thing I know, he took a path flying down from the tree right over my head. And I missed the moment because I wasn't ready. What I learned about the osprey is they will commonly take a poop before they're about to leave their perch. So now when I see this, I have got my eye to the camera, my finger on the focusing button, and I am ready for them to take flight and do whatever interesting behavior they might do. But the point is it may not be anything special. It may be boring. They may just fly away. They may fly away in a direction that I can't get a photo of them. But you know what? If I'm not ready, I don't have a chance at all. But if I am ready and I expect that moment to happen, at least if something does happen, I am there and I can take some pictures of it. So number 1 is visit sites regularly and learn the behaviors of the animals you're photographing. Number 2, just like I was talking about here in number 1, right? You got to be ready for the moment. Practice anticipating moments. This is huge as a photographer, and I don't care what you're photographing. You may be photographing weddings. You may be photographing wildlife. It doesn't matter. If you're photographing something where there is activity involved that is unplanned, you need to be ready for the moment, right? I used to photograph weddings, and let me tell you, if you weren't ready for those spontaneous moments to unfold, you miss them. And those are pictures that your clients really want at the end of the day, right? It's the moments that they miss because they're so busy during the wedding day getting married. And so they miss all those unique moments that happen between their guests or, their parents or their siblings or whatever the case may be. You need to understand how to anticipate and prepare for these sporadic moments that just kind of happen on a wedding day. Well, the same thing holds true in wildlife photography. And that's why it's so important to understand the behaviors of the animals, because the more you understand it, the more you will be ready for these sporadic moments, because they're going to give you little clues, little signs when something is about to happen. But learn to anticipate this, because I think personally that anticipating moments and being ready to photograph these moments is one of the greatest skills you can have as a photographer, because it is going to open up your world into capturing more beautiful moments, more beautiful photos, more interesting photos that people are going to be really impressed with. Number 3, create images with a greater purpose, with a greater intent so that you can get more interesting photos. What does that mean? I see so many, especially newer wildlife photographers, right? They go out to whatever area they're going to, a park, a trail, whatever the case may be, and they're walking through with their camera and they come across the bird sitting on a log. Bird's not doing anything interesting. It's just sitting there, but they get so excited. They start snapping off some photos. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, let's go on. Let's move on to the next bird, right? And they leave that bird there and they start looking for other species, other types of birds, other pictures that they can get. I understand that, right? We all get that excitement sometimes when we get out into the field and we're photographing birds or animals or whatever. It's exciting. Your heart gets pumping, your adrenaline starts going, and you just want to take a picture of every living thing that you can find. Those are all understandable feelings, but slow down. Have more of a purpose in taking your photos. Capture that bird, even if it is just a portrait, even if they're not doing anything interesting, even if they don't give you an incredible moment to photograph. Photograph that bird. But then instead of rushing off to find another species to photograph or another animal to photograph, think for a second, look around. How can I make this photo more interesting? Is there something different I can do? Could I come over here and maybe get a better background? Or could I go over to this location and somehow include some other element that helps to tell the story of what I'm photographing? We always want to be creating images that focuses the attention on our subject. We've talked about this in previous videos. So we do have to be a little discriminatory about what we include in our photos and what we don't include in our photos. But don't be so quick to just take a photo and move on. Look around, see what's in the background, see what's in the foreground. Are there any elements that you can use to make your photos more interesting? Don't rush off to get that next bird before you have exhausted everything you can right here in the bird or animal that you're photographing. Number 4, shoot in low angles. And I'm going to say this, and I want to add a little bit more something to it. Change your angles, right? Everyone wants to go out, and it's so easy to get caught up in the trap of taking pictures of birds, animals, whatever you're photographing. So easy to get caught up in taking your photos at eye level. That is how everyone sees whatever you're photographing in real life, right? We see everything from eye level. Generally, people aren't walking around your town, your nature trails, your parks, right? They're not crawling, they're not jumping, they're not standing on things, they're just walking, right? So everything they see is at eye level. If you really want to create more interest in your photos, changing the angles or the height of your camera is something that can very quickly and very easily add a lot of dramatics and a lot of interest to your photos. Going low when you are photographing wildlife is one of the greatest ways to create a lot of visual interest in your subjects. If you're photographing birds and you have a bird that's on the ground and you shoot it eye level, that's a boring photo. It's almost like the same photographer that goes out who likes to photograph flowers, right? You want to create interest in flowers, get low, shoot up at the petals so that maybe the sun is, behind it and you're getting kind of a backlit shot, or the sun is coming through the petal. That'll create a much more interesting, a much more dynamic photo. But if that photographer who's photographing flowers goes out and takes pictures of every single flower from eye height, it is boring, right? They will suck. The photos will suck. No way to get around it other than saying they will suck. The same is going to hold true for your wildlife photography. If you're shooting everything at eye level, your photos are going to suck. They're going to lack interest. They're going to lack dimension, and people are going to get bored with them. If you took the same photo, but you lay down on the ground and take a picture of a bird eye level on the ground, people are going to be like, how did you do that, right? Why? This photo is so interesting because you are seeing the bird in a completely different perspective than you see it every day. So just taking a boring photo of a bird standing in the grass, but taking it from eye level to laying down, your photo, the interest is going to skyrocket 1,000 times more than if you just stand up and take the photo like everyone sees it every day. So change your height, change your angles, and really look at going low and getting on the same level as wildlife photography. Number 5, don't take your photos in the middle of the day. This is the most boring lighting that you have. Now, there may be situations or maybe times when your only, way to get out and take some photos is the middle of the day. Well, try to find some unique ways to use the lighting, even when it's up higher and the lighting is more harsh because of the midday sun. Try to find unique ways to use the lighting to your advantage, right? Make sure the animal, the bird that you're photographing is well lit by the light. Watch for shadows, right? You don't want any real harsh shadows where half the animal's in the sunlight and half the animal's in the shade and there's like a hard line going through the animal. It kind of looks a little awkward. It looks a little weird. So if at all possible, right, shoot in the early morning and the early evenings. Use sunrise and sunset to your advantage. Now, we've talked a lot about this in previous episodes here on this channel, but we know that the difficulty with shooting in early morning and early evening is the quantity of light, right? Sometimes we really have to struggle, but we've talked about how to use photographing at ISOs to our advantage and different editing programs that we can use to help clean up some of the noise from shooting at these higher ISOs so that we can get cleaner, just better, more professional looking pictures. Don't be afraid to go out during these times. The sunlight and the sun angles are so beautiful in the early morning and the early evening. It just creates a whole new depth, texture, and dimension to your photos and will really give you some beautiful lighting and some beautiful opportunities when photographing wildlife. Use those beautiful orange and reddish tones that come from sunrise and sunlight to help light your subject and create this beautiful, dramatic lighting. And people will look at your photos and they will just be in awe of how this looks, because this will once again be lighting and be situations that people don't get to see animals in, right? Not many people are out looking at a bird as the beautiful morning sunrise is hitting its face, right? These are unique photos that will really create interest and grab people's attention. So be sure to use those times to really capture some great photos. Number 6, shoot in weather that is not sunny, right? Cloudy skies can be good for the sake of you don't have to deal with the harsh elements of the sun, right? Especially during the midday. But oftentimes cloudy skies can create boring photos, especially if you're photographing birds flying against the sky. Now, it might be good if you're photographing birds in the forest, right? Because again, you won't have that dappled sunlight coming through the trees, or you won't have those harsh shadows and have the animal in half sun, half shade type of situations. So that can be great. But photographing birds on a cloudy sky is boring. Yeah, you captured a bird flying. That will be wonderful. That will be great. But if the sky is white or just a solid color in the background, trust me, it gets super boring super quick. And your images will lose a lot of that depth, texture, and dimension that we're going for, and it will create more boring photos. But if it's raining out, if it's a little bit foggy, if it's snowing out, grab your camera, grab your lens, go out and shoot in weather that is less than perfect. Now, there are lots of things you can do to protect your camera. You can go online, buy a cover for it, right? The cover will go over your lens. It will go over your camera. Put your camera on a tripod. Everything will be protected. Just bring a rag to maybe clean off your lens every now and then, but everything will be protected. You can go out in the elements and you can create very, very dramatic images. Maybe the bird is wet. Maybe some other animal that you're photographing is wet. Maybe it's snowing and they've got snow on them. There are so many different situations that you can get when you go out in weather that is less than ideal. And this will create those dramatic images that have a lot of visual interest. And it will really wow the viewer when you capture these in a very creative way, using a lot of these other techniques that we've talked about today, right? Use different angles, use different weather situations to create some interesting photos. Guys, there you have it. Those are 6 simple tips that you can use to go out You can use them in your photography today. You can create better photographs today simply by using these tips. You don't have to try to cram all 6 into one photo. Go out, on a day, let's just say it's sunny, practice changing your angles. Practice changing the height of your camera. Focus on one thing during that session of wild photography and compare it to the pictures that you've been taking and see what you think. Did your pictures get better? Do you look at it, and look back and go, you know what? I could have went a little lower here. I could have went a little higher here. Or you know what? Looking back, I knew there was a really cool background over here. If I'd only moved 10 more steps to the right, I would have had a better photo. It's okay if you make mistakes. That's the whole point of learning. But do these things. Take some of these tips, go out, try it. And like I said, compare it to your other photos and see what you like better. I guarantee your photos are going to get better. Hey guys, what do you think about this show today? Do you find it helpful? Did you find it useful? If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that, and it will help to spread the word about this channel. Also, if you liked the video, please make sure you give it a like and share it if you would like to do that as well. All of those things help for these videos to be seen a little bit more, and I greatly appreciate that. Be sure to check all the show notes. We have lots of things going on there. A lot of products here that are now affiliate links, which of course means that it's no additional money to you, but every time you use one of those affiliate links, that provides a little bit of a small commission for me, and that is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much for stopping by today. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing everyone in the next video.